think these are just little sweeteners, little details. I think so. The protagonist of this story is called Doreen Etheridge, and she's a child of war. She didn't know much in terms of luxury or riches, and I think this kind of extravagance is just something that anyone who's had a grandparent who's done this, who's gone absolutely crazy on this kind of spread. I think there's some sort of deep-rooted defensiveness. It's almost the need to show that they are no longer poor and can now provide because they've come through the hardship. And that's a major theme in this story. Doreen is for want of a better term, she's a horrible bitch. That evening, Doreen drew the curtains and lowered the lights. In the kitchen, she put a grime mix on her stereo. Her dozy grandson, Jonathan, had given her a Dean Martin CD album for Christmas, passed off as a considered gift, but clearly straight from his mother's car glove box and wrapped last minute. It contained the wrong disc. She was hooked immediately. The raw energy, infectious beats and barbs lit her up. It was then, feeling their savage release in the lyrics, the way they spat, that she'd hatched the idea of the gathering. She liked black music and the grime kids' attitudes. Their fire was real. They, like she, were routine victims of wild stereotyping and thick-headed preconceptions filed into easily digested user-friendly profiles. She'd seen it all in her youth, and not much had changed. They just dressed their discrimination a little better now. The elderly, the vulnerable. How she loathed the terminology. The BBC News fed viewers the expected narrative on every broadcast, depressing images of old doddery people in care homes. They cast the skeletal ones as stars, with their textbook white fleece hair, state-of-the-art stairlifts and tartan blankets. It made us sick. Doreen knew that age was only a number. Not all of us were subservient weaklings straight out of the chauvinist's handbook, she thought, her eyes narrowing. Now, frightened, and suddenly under the blazing glare of TV lights and cameras, the reality for the broken ones was some distance from the Marilyn Monroe gusty skirt glamour they used to dream about. What she had been slow, but not too late, to realise was that, if you were smart, lazy assumptions could open up a whole world of unchecked freedoms. Doreen pecked her way across the kitchen to Getz and turned on the overhead cooker spotlight. Her sneering face was half lit, pinched with sadistic glee. On top of the hob sat Granny's cake tin. It was an empty Foxy's Family Biscuit selection drum from 1999, a time when they didn't trim the sizes to compensate for inflation. If you'd opened it, you'd better have contingency plans for a cholesterol-related illness in years to come. Doreen piled in the goodies from today's shop, pink and beige crumbs from previous hauls still scattered around the bottom. The quality of the selection was scandalous. She couldn't fit the final third of the shop in, but the surplus would sit in the cupboard. Weaponry for another war. Getz faded out and in came Wretch 32, but Doreen stopped bopping and stared through the tower block of Tunnock's tea cakes, lost in thought. She was a young girl again, perpetually hungry and cold to the bone. Mother and Pops had provided warmth for the heart to compensate for what they could not afford to heat the body, so there had been wonder despite the want. Wartime was over, but it would be some time before the sweet treats became readily available. By the time her grandsons arrived, she was financially independent, stable, and had been able to care for both parents in the twilight of their lives. End-of-life care. That's what they labelled it now. Doreen hissed. Then, when Mother and Pops had passed, and with more disposable income than she had ever known, her focus had shifted onto the younger ones. She taught her daughters gratitude for what they had, and wrought them a work ethic with which they'd be able to earn well, live comfortable lives. They understood the concept of enjoying a treat. Savour the moment, for it may never come again. Never would they have dared to bring gluttony into the home. Doreen despised it. Makes me feel a bit sick looking at it. It does take me back though. This is not an exaggeration at all. I mean, this is probably underselling the spread that I used to get from my nan. And I used to come away from there running on the bus roof, you know, completely hyperactive, like pockets stuffed. She'd give me stuff on the way out, like Yeah, lad, sneak that in your pocket. It's that kind of thing. Shove that in before your mother sees. And I'd get probably 2 penguins, a gold biscuit, maybe a Tunnock's tea cake, a couple of other things, a couple of sweets, and then I'd get a little tap on the wrist or a little boot under the table off my dad, and he'd be like, I think you've had enough. You probably see the pupils just enlarging as I'm looking at him. It's disgusting when you look back, but I loved it. I really loved it, and I think there was a certain pride there. Pride to go, look, we've come out the war, we've got a little bit more money under our belt, and we can provide now. And this is what you're getting. You're having this good stuff because we've worked for it, and we've been to battle for this freedom. And now you see kids after school going in supermarkets and just blitzing it. They're coming out. I see it I find the litter in the park in the morning when I'm walking the dog, like the Lucozade and the bag of tangy fruit, whatever, like E-number sweets and big chocolate bars, and you think, where's your white cider? Where's your booze and your condoms? This is a proper vice, and it's a proper legal, family-friendly vice that nobody questions. No one goes, what was your heart attack from? Mint Viscounts? No, nobody pulls that up, do they? Nobody goes, too much chocolate there, it's fatty foods or it's bad diet, but no one zeroes in on this stuff. And I think that's how Doreen Etheridge goes under cover of this darkness. And I'm right there with her. I think I look at these kids and I think, nah, I'm with Doreen. I think she's an absolute killer and I'm on board with her. She's a monster of a creation, just like this stuff.